Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about Real Salt Lake in the Moving Forward series episode, and while RSL this season finished exactly at the same place as they were last year, and the records are pretty similar to the one last season, finished above 500, well actually last season they finished exactly at 500, this season they finished just above 500. I feel like this season was a little bit different compared to last year. Yes, the way that they made the playoffs was similar to last season when they were able to get in on decision day, but just the way that they play this season is something kind of just in some way I would say overperforming, because when you look at the team that they have, I don't think this team was as good as it was last season, and especially when they lost two of their key players in Demir Krylak and Bobby Wood going for up front, and that there were times where this attack really struggled. Didn't look like this team was going to go anywhere this season, but somehow in some way they were able to make it to the playoffs. And also it seemed like the culture that they built on a couple of years ago, that the team of course is the star as one of their slogan. Oh yeah, it's definitely back in full force, because pretty much everybody either pulled their weight but also pulled above their weight with the way how they played this season. But like I said, this season they finished with a 12-11-11 record with 47 points. So again, they finished with almost the same record, though they have less points because of the fact that they draw more games this season compared to last year, and they won less games because of that. They scored 43 goals this season while allowing 45 goals and had a goal differential of -2. And while their defense were definitely right there in terms of just a little bit above average as one of the better defense in the league, the attack is not. I mean, the attack was the worst attack out of any team that made it to the playoffs, and that it's kind of below average. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that when you lose guys like Bobby Wood and Demir Krylak, like a guy that pretty much supplies most of the goals and kind of pulling the strings for this team, you're going to have some deficiency in terms of the attacking department. And then, as I said, like last season, they finished 7th in the Western Conference. It looked like maybe they were going to go on another Cinderella run, but no. They got eliminated by Austin FC in the first round, and we'll kind of talk about how in some way they kind of choke in that game against Austin FC. But before we talk about that, I'm actually going to go straight to the top goal scorer and top assist leader, because when I wrote this, I accidentally forgot to wrote the top goal scorer and top assist leader. That's why they're kind of like near the bottom. But the top goal scored of this team, and again, just to shows you how this attack kind of struggled, the top goal scorer was actually Sergio Cordova with 9 goals, followed by Jefferson Savarino, who came back to this team in the middle of the season and was able to contribute with 7 goals. But then the rest of the team, you have a bunch of players that is currently on 3 goals. We have some guys like Justin Glad, Justin Miram, and also Bobby Wood, before he got injured, was on 3 goals apiece for this RSL team. Top assist leader, again, it would have been normally Demir Krylak as their main top assist leader, but since he went down with an injury very early in the season, he was definitely not found in this list. So basically we had a lot of contribution in terms of the top assist leader. First of all, you got Justin Miram leading the team with 7 assists, but only just because you got Andrew Brody and Michael Chang, of all people, with 6 assists for this team. Jefferson Savarino contributed with 5 assists, and Jasper Lofferson with 5 assists for this RSL team. And going back to what we talked about, the highlights of this team, again, this team has always built in the team is the star culture. And what that basically means for RSL is that they don't really need a superstar player. They don't really need to always have a guy that they really depend on as kind of the main contributor in terms of goal scoring. The team is going to basically always pull their weight in, and they will always find ways to either, of course, score those goals, or maybe assist some of these goals. And that pretty much is evidence in terms of when you look at the stats, especially on the top assist leader, where again everybody was pulling the weight in terms of creating those chances for their teammate. And in some way, I think that's a good thing to see, because that's kind of the culture that RSL has been built, and that's kind of a perfect culture to build when you are a small market team like RSL. I mean, RSL has always never been a team that has spent big on transfer, and they're always been a team that likes to develop within or getting players from their academy. But still, even then, this has always been a very hard-working kind of team, and that this season, especially under Pablo Mastroeni, which I kind of question the fact that they decided to retain him, even though, I know he had a good run in the playoffs, but, throughout the time when he took over in the regular season, this team was kind of very up and down and very inconsistent, but man, he has done a good job in terms of, again, just getting every last inch out of the quality of this team has, and of course, once again, build back the team is the star kind of culture to really propel this team to be a playoff team. They came out of the gate where they left off in the second half of the season. So yeah, they really shot out of the cannon in terms of how they start this season. I think they were like 4-1-0 to start the season. Got pretty high in the standings, and that a lot of that has to do with the fact that early in the season they pretty much have most of their playmakers still in this team, and that again losing seeing those playmakers really kind of hurt this team going forward in the attack, and really hurt in terms of on the attacking front. But the other thing that there is a highlights for this team is the fact that they did it again on decision day. Now, obviously, this year they didn't do it as dramatic as they did last season, with going on the road against Sporting KC, scoring literally at the death to get the winning goal to sneak into the playoffs. This season it was a little bit less dramatic, with them getting a 1-0 win against the Portland Timbers at home. And in some way, this time it was a little bit more easier as compared to last season, because at least they get to play at home, and at least for the most part this season they've been pretty good at well, I know it's not called the Rio Tinto Stadium anymore, but I'm pretty sure RSL fans and myself will always call that place as the Riot, and that they were they were definitely good enough to a point where in that home decision day game you kind of had a feeling that they were going to pull off the victory to make it into the playoffs. Now, what are some of the lowlights for this team? As I mentioned before, injuries to big star player on the attacking end like Bobby Wood and Demir Krajlik really kind of hurt this team, and that if they actually have both of those players still healthy, I would have said that this team could have actually done better in terms of this season. Probably would have gone higher in the standings, and they really missed those contribution for them. And I thought the ownership, I was kind of a little disappointed that they didn't really open the pocket and be as ambitious as we thought that they were. So, with the new Blitzer and Smith kind of ownership that this RSL team has had, they mentioned that they are not going to be afraid to open the pockets, and they're willing to spend more money than previous regime, but it just doesn't seem like that promise has been fulfilled yet, because when you look at most of the signings that they've done in the last offseason and even in the summer transfer window, it was kind of a bit underwhelming. I mean, really the biggest signing you can say last season is bringing back Jefferson Savarino back to this team, and that definitely did at least kind of help infuse of an attack that was mostly stale for majority part of the season after they lost their two big attacking player. But either way, I thought that they were going to spend more. I thought they were going to be more ambitious, but as of now, they haven't been able to do so, and that they really haven't opened the pockets as what many RSL fans were hoping this new ownership would definitely do. And then, of course, obviously the biggest lowlights of this season, besides the injuries, is the collapse against Austin. I mean, I'm pretty sure every RSL fans can admit that game against Austin FC, it was, I know there's going to be some RSL fans are still going to be mad about refereeing decision that kind of gone against them, and in some way there were definitely some that kind of gone against them, but what definitely didn't go against them is the fact that they failed to close out the game, and also the fact that I will also say that as much as I don't want to say they kind of choke, as even though I've said that before, when you also look back at that Austin game, they were pretty much just holding on for dear life, because Austin was kind of all over RSL for the most part of the game. But the fact that they had a 2-0 lead to start the game, and off to just a dream start, and the fact that it looked like that was kind of a game where Austin was just having one of those games where they aren't able to put the ball away, you thought that maybe RSL was going to pull through. And I think the other thing that has to be a disappointment coming out of that game is the fact that, let's not forget, they play down a man for majority of the game, and they probably shouldn't have played down a man for majority of the game if Rubio Rubin decided to have a brain fart kind of moment that maybe has single-handedly cost the team, because I really think that that mistake that he made, I wouldn't say it really cost them, because Austin, while they were creating some chances, it wasn't like they were really in a point of a period where they were putting furious pressure like what we saw in extra time. But I'm pretty sure if it was 11v11, at least we wouldn't even get to a discussion of the fact that, well, RSL was going to be really up against it, and now holding just this 2-1 lead, it's going to be almost an impossible task to try to close out this game, especially against an Austin team that knows how to be able to come back and able to be kind of a team that is not a stranger to kind of dramatic late goals to get a draw or even get a winner at the end of the game. Now, moving on in terms of the MVP and revelation, and I'm not gonna lie, this was a really hard pick. I think this was probably one of the hardest team to pick in terms of a revelation and MVP, because whenever you have a team that pretty much have everybody contribute and have that culture of the team is the star, it's kind of hard to pick who is kind of the breakout star of the team. Now, in normal year, I would definitely go on with Damir Krajicek, because he's been the head and shoulder their best player for many years. But like I said, he's been injured, so I can't really pick him there. And after that, you look at a lot of players in this team really stepped up when they really needed to. I mean, Justin Merrim had an unbelievable season, despite the fact that you thought that maybe Father Time would start catching him up, and all of a sudden he just become the top assist leader of this team. Jefferson Savarino definitely bought something back to this team that they miss before he arrived. And even guys like Jasper Loftuson continue to make me eat my words and continue to prove that, yeah, super draft picks are actually useful, and that if you, of course, are able to draft players correctly, and especially the fact that he's another example of a player that I don't think anybody would have heard of him in the beginning of the season, but by the end of the season, you probably know his name, because he turns out to be an absolute stud. But in the end, I gotta go with Andrew Brody, and I think I've seen this come in with the way that last season when Brody really broke into this RSL team, he was a guy that looked like could be a really good player in this league, and could also be a player that could maybe be playing in Europe someday, and he definitely proved that this season. I mean, he really elevated this team in the fullback position, and almost in some way he's kind of like a classic modern fullback in this team, with the way that he's not afraid to bomb forward, going for on the attack, and not afraid to, of course, create those chances and create those great crosses into the box. And that is a textbook example of what a fullback does. And I would also say that he might be one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated, left back in this league, because of not many people mentioning the fact that he's been an upward projectile to be a really good player in this league. Now, in terms of disappointment, this one was pretty easy. It's got to be Rubio Rubin. I mean, for Rubio Rubin, this has been a disastrous second season during his time with RSL. And that, remember last year when he break through the team, and the fact that I think there was even maybe a more percentage of people said that he could be a future U.S. men's national team number 9. Yeah, that did not happen. And by the way, he wouldn't be a future U.S. men's national team number 9, because people forget that he actually represents Guatemala as his national team. But yeah, I mean, after an incredible breakout season last year, oh boy, Rubio Rubin definitely hit a sophomore slump and then some. I mean, this was just an abysmal year for him, to a point where he just couldn't get into the starting 11 because of the way that he wasn't playing well at all, struggled to score goals. And I think the cherry on the top has to be that sending off against Austin. Like, that moment against Austin, that was one of the most dumbest moves that I've seen a player made. And again, I think that moment, well, I wouldn't say that completely cost RSL chances of winning the game against Austin. It definitely had a factor in terms of it. And that, yeah, this was no doubt a disappointing season by big measure. And just, yeah, unfortunately, it maybe feels like Rubio Rubin, if he is going to maybe I don't think he's now part of this team anymore. We'll see whether if any team is going to try to pick him up. But if he doesn't improve in next season, yeah, we might be seeing another example of a one-hit wonder with a player doing very well in one season and they just never able to recover that form in the next couple of seasons. Now, moving forward for this RSL team, it seems like they are finally looking to open the checkbooks, as there was a rumors saying that they're going to go for a club record transfer of Andres Gomez, a Colombian winger, and that the transfer fee looks like it's going to be rumored at $4 million. Now, in today's MLS 3.0 kind of standard, $4 million doesn't seems like that big of a transfer, but when you look at RSL, a team that has never been known to spend really big in terms of transfers, and that again a lot of that has to do with the previous ownership tends to be a little bit on the cheap side and tends to kind of follow the same identity that FC Dallas does, with heavily invest their academy and promote them to be playing on the team. This new ownership is definitely promised that that's not going to be the only thing they're going to do. They're going to be ambitious in terms of transfer market, and I think this is no doubt going to be one of their more ambitious and maybe just a starter of what things to come, where they are going to start to open the checkbook and start to spend big in the transfer market to get a decent player. And from what I heard, this player is definitely very decent and can definitely provide another source on the attacking front for this RSL team. But obviously, the thing that they maybe need to also address is the number 9 position. So with the fact that Cordova, it doesn't seem like he's coming back this season, because remember he was on loan last season, and while he did lead the team in terms of the goal scorer, I will say that he kind of he got better as the season goes along, but really there was time where RSL fans were kind of frustrated with him, especially with some times where he was being a little bit inconsistent, and that maybe that was enough for them to say that maybe they're not going to be thinking about bringing him back. And if they're not going to bring him back, they're going to definitely look into that position, because Bobby Wood is now gone to New England, and that we'll see whether if they're going to maybe once again do what they have done before, which is look within the academy, or in terms of the super draft. I mean, in some way they kind of are looking into the super draft, because they have selected 2 forwards that could be playing that number 9 position next season for RSL. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who is going to play that spot next year. And then finally, the last thing for this RSL team is just kind of continue their identity. Like, this is a team that will always believe that the team is the star, but they always will believe that they want to give young players a chance, and also give players that was picked from the super draft a chance to develop, integrate into the starting 11, and eventually become a well-known player. And we have seen it so many times with this RSL team. And I will say that, besides maybe FC Dallas and the Philadelphia Union, I think RSL is probably the best team as an example of how to actually invest in the academy and able to build in a way where you can still able to produce some good talent and put them in the starting 11 and able to get resort. I mean, we've seen so many teams that have tried to do so and haven't really kind of have that success. RSL is definitely a different thing kind of team, in terms of one of the few teams that have actually been able to be successful when they're basically playing guys from their academy. And this is also kind of the reason why if you're a neutral and you want to pick a team, especially a team that you like to kind of being like an underdog story, or just kind of a team that likes to build within and look for homegrown talent. I mentioned the Philadelphia Union for many times has been the kind of the people team, because this is a team that is the classic example of what happens when you can able to be smart with your transfer signing, and also getting some good players from the academy and eventually sell them off to Europe. I think RSL might be that team. I mean, they're not as good as I will say what the Union and maybe FC Dallas have done, but they're not that far behind in terms of that kind of philosophy of how to build a team that could be a playoff team, and even maybe be a team that can go deep into the playoffs, like what we saw 2 seasons ago when it went to the Western Conference Final. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of my moving forward series of Real Salt Lake. Let me know in the comments below if you're an RSL fan. What's the highlights, the lowlights, the MVP revelation, disappointment, and moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.